Welcome, everyone, to the Vision Straight Masterclass series. I'm Obi Malo, an optometrist and eye care leader based here in South Africa, the motherland. As you can see, I'm with one of the most interesting, most amazing human beings, not even eye care leader, human beings that you could ever meet in anywhere in the world. And that is none other than Dr. Jennifer Lyerly. How are you today, Doc?
I am so great. It is such an honor to be on the show with you, Obi, and just thank you for all the work that you're doing. You are leading a global cause in optometry, and it is so exciting to see how much optometrists across the world are able to interact. We're all dealing with the same patient care issues, and it really is a global community now.
No, absolutely, absolutely. You know, when I look back at social media and what it has meant for the eye care industry over the last 5 to 6 years, it is absolutely incredible. If you had to take one thing away from social media, it has literally been a blessing in, if I can put it that way, of connecting us in the eye care professional. You know, I don't consider you a colleague. I consider you my sister. I consider you a great friend, simply because we have known each other for so long. We have done various work indirectly or directly over the years. But to have the privilege and the honor of sitting right across you through this masterclass series, it's a complete honor and a privilege. I'm super excited to learn more about you today, but most importantly, I'm super excited for that young leader, that experienced leader, that business leader. Every single professional in the eye care industry is going to learn so much from you because of the uniqueness of your type of leadership approach. And why I say that, a lot of the times, people want to be the main person when it comes to leadership. And they feel like if they're not the main person, then they don't get involved. And one thing that resonates with you towards me the most is how much grace you have in your leadership style. You do it so effortlessly. You do it with so much ease. But I know that it might look like that, but that's not necessarily the case. So before we even get into all of that, who is Dr. Jennifer Lyerly? How did your journey in eye care begin? We want to know more about how did you get started in eye care?
Well, I am an optometrist. I practice in Raleigh, North Carolina, if you can't tell by this southern drawl that I have. I went to Southern College of Optometry in Memphis, Tennessee, because after my interview, I interviewed at PCO and at SCO. And when I went to PCO, I went to Wendy's, for like my pre-interview meal, and I asked for sweet tea, and I got the tea, and it tasted awful. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wanted sweet tea." And the lady was like, "That's tea." And then I knew I had to go to Memphis. So I guess I haven't traveled far in my life, but yeah, I did not know. So I actually stole my sister's career aspirations.
Wow.
She knew from a very young age she wanted to be an optometrist. She started wearing glasses in 4th grade. I was that kid that I always thought I had great vision. And then I went to get my driver's license permit, and I was really struggling. And the lady was like, "Get your bangs out of your eyes. I think your bangs are in the way." That was not it. I could not see. I just didn't know. And so, come to find out, I needed glasses. But through our experience growing up, going to the eye doctor with my whole family and being the one kid that, had good vision. I also have 2 younger brothers, by the way. So when we went, it was like the whole day we were at the eye doctor. The optometrist office was so fun. The lifestyle really is what drew me to the practice. He was one of those older school optometrists where I think each exam must have been like an hour long. It was just him one-on-one. He had one person that worked the front desk. He had a dog in the office. He owned horses. He had like a pet bird that he sometimes brought into work. Like, he was so eclectic and so bohemian, and it just seemed like the most fun job ever. And that's been the vision of optometry I've been chasing in my career ever since. That like self-entrepreneurial, you design it how you want to be, you do it how you want to do, and you just love it.
Wow. That is so important what you're highlighting, because my question then to you is that when you look back from what led you into eye care versus where you are at right now in terms of patient care, because your story is from that person who was inspired by the optometrist and the optometry environment. How much of that has influenced the way you practice or do optometry today?
I just had a big impact on me because I had this vision, right, of what my career was going to look like, of what day-to-day practice was going to look like. And my first job out of school was a job that many young optometrists are seeing right now. It was a great learning experience, but it was an extremely aggressive environment. I was on a 15-minute schedule. Within 3 years, I thought maybe I should think about reconsidering optometry.
Wow.
I was really burnt out that fast because I'm a person who, if you put someone in front of me, I'm going to do everything I can to help that person. And I'm trying to practice full scope optometry and fit scleral lenses and like do everything possible that I can in a 15-minute appointment slot. So, you know, that's a learning curve for me too. I've learned like, oh, you got to bring people back sometimes. Like you can't address everything at their comprehensive exam. Like I'm sure I lost the practice a lot of money because I wasn't billing appropriately for taking on all of these medical cases during a comprehensive eye exam schedule. And so I learned a lot from that experience, but it did almost burn me out. And I've made 2 career changes since then, and both have been to go to smaller practices. Now I'm with a doctor who I actually had met at the original practice. She opened up her own practice cold, and she owns 2 locations now. I'm seeing patients 3 days a week.
Oh.
And it is fantastic. I have never been happier and never loved my profession more.
Wow, that is very interesting, because a lot of the times you're so young, in your early 20s or mid 20s as an optometrist, you are in this environment, you're earning the money that you feel like you need. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, optometrists don't make that switch to say, but this is not for me. In South Africa, for example, we've got 2 types of practice or business models. We've got independent practices as well as franchise-based practices. And what I've picked up, a lot of the franchise-based practices, they're the ones that hire the students, majority of the students from university, and they'll put you in charge of this practice that they have started in a new center or in a new mall. And like you said, 15 to 20 minutes, that patient needs to be out of there. And there's not necessarily enough time for you to harness your contact lens skills, your pediatric skills, and you end up focusing on getting as many patients as you possibly can. Whereas the independent practices, they tend to hire more experienced optometrists once you have accumulated the years and you are more fine-tuning your skills in a particular area. So what ends up happening, like you said, that young optometrist feels like this is not for me, but they don't make that switch to say, I will go and earn less money. I will go and work in a smaller town, but have that 1 hour, 1.5 hour time that's allocated for patient care. What was your decision-making process then? When you discovered that this is what I'm going to go for, but this is where I'm currently at, what were some of the obstacles that you then had to overcome in that process?
I mean, definitely every time you take that step back, right, you're seeing less patients, it's for a smaller group, you are stepping away from money. And there's no other way to look at it, but you start to have these debates. There's one package at the end of the day, and the doctor I used to work for, his name is Dr. Tony Clark. He put this so eloquently, and he was like, I have a total package that I can give to a doctor. If I give you more money, there's going to be less other benefits. If I give you more benefits, then there's going to be less money. But at the end of the day, everyone's coming from the same pot of total package available.
Wow.
And it's person to person, right? Like the person who tells me I want to go with the job that I'm going to make the most money, I don't say that that's wrong. If that's what is motivating to you and is rewarding to you, then that is what you should do. For other people, maybe their work-life balance was more important to them, or having more vacation days because they're travel more. That might be more important to them. So you're going to take a package where you do make less, but maybe your quality of life and your happiness is higher. And so you've got to kind of come at it both ways. There's no job where you're going to get everything at the highest possible level. There are compromises with all good things.
Wow. I love that. Speaking of that quality of life, you are involved in multiple aspects of eye care. So you have gone beyond the examination room. Your involvement in the eye care industry involves conferences, involves your own company, Defocus Media, involves you being an eye care professional influencer, if I can put it that way. It involves speaking engagements. It involves working with universities. It's basically multifactorial or multifaceted. Did you always know that that's the journey that you're going to go into? And did your idea of what the ideal quality of life you want to have, was that already there at the onset, or did it sort of like unwind itself along the journey? How did that journey of you being involved in so many projects unfold beyond the eye examination room, if I can put it that way?
You know, I had no aspirations or great vision. I happened to come out, it was 2011 when I graduated optometry school. And as part of one of our last week on campus, we had a speaker come in and he was encouraging us. He was like, when you guys, you know, next week you're going out to work for your practices, you are going to be asked to take on some things that optometrists have never really taken on before because of the way the world. You're going to go to work for doctors who are spending their marketing budget buying a Yellow Pages ad. Wow. And they are going to be left in the dust, and they're going to ask you about, can you make a website for me? Maybe we should have a blog. I've been hearing about these things. Like, this was brand new stuff. Wow. And he was like, you guys got to figure that out. Like, I know you didn't go to IT school, but if you have any downtime right now, I highly encourage you, get online, start blogging, figure out some basic website management stuff, because your practice will greatly benefit if you can bring that value. Wow. And so I did, and it was really more for myself. I was trying to study for North Carolina optometry boards. You know, in the US, each state has their own license that they're coming across. And so in my particular state, you have to take an oral board. And as a part of my studying, I was like, all right, on topics I'm really maybe a little bit struggling with, let me write a really good blog article, because that'll force me to think about it and learn it. And then, you know, that just grew. Everything that I've gotten involved with really has always come from a place of, I want to learn more. And if I'm producing content that I feel like is useful to me, and if other people so happen to benefit from it, fabulous. I am so thrilled that other people can learn from it too. But if it's not of value and useful to me, I don't want to make it.
Wow, I love that. I think that's one of the things that I realized, that I'm going to steal that line from you, because I engage with a lot of optometry students on the African continent. And I realized that you just highlighted something so powerful. You wanted to be clear on what value you're going to be bringing to the optometry practice or the optometry environment that you're going to be in. And I realized that a lot of young people don't think beyond their optometry clinical skills. So you're not only going to be hired for that which you are qualified for, but over and above that, what else can you be able to do that the practice will need, that you can be able to sort of like be the one who ends up doing it. So I absolutely love that, because that's something that so many young people need to be hearing more of, that we might all have the same degree, but in terms of the impact and the value that we're going to be adding to the optometry practice, that's going to be on you. And you can actually increase your revenue potential or revenue earning potential by all these other small extra things that you can end up doing for that optometry practice. So I love that. I love that. And I feel like more students or more young people need to be thinking about this. And not even the young people, even that 35-year-old optometrist who has been in practice for like 10 years, they can start thinking from listening to this, how do I impact or influence the practice that I'm in to take it to another level beyond my optometry skills? So then the question then I have for you, have you studied extra things that have enabled you to increase or enhance your competency skills, whether it be for optometry or for all the other extra stuffs? Did you go and learn how to speak? Did you go and learn how to do video editing? Did you go and learn how to do all these other extra things? How did that journey for you unfold?
You know, I wish I could benefit from taking actual coursework from people. Daryl and I are bootstrap kind of people. We will watch a YouTube video to figure out how to do something. We'll read some blog articles. basically everything with Defocus Media, we have been self-taught, and you can see those growing pains if you go back to our earlier content. And we harness the same resources that you guys have readily available to you when you pull up your computer and open the internet to learn how to do things. And I'm sure if we had taken courses from professionals, we would have been a lot better at it.
So you learn as you go. I love that. You learn as you go. You literally are self-teaching yourselves. But obviously, there is a sense of excellence, because if I look at all the work that you keep doing, whether it be from your own optometry professional or the work that you do through the business, there's a sense of excellence that is attached to your name. It's as if you don't allow work that's not excellent to be out in the public platform that represents you. So have you always been like that? Or when did you realize that, wait a minute, there's this level and then there's that level? How did your journey then unfold in that regard?
I call this a personality flaw. Okay. A perfectionism. Many optometrists suffer from the same plight. And you're that kind of self-motivated student. If you're not getting straight A's, something's wrong. If you're not the top of the class, if you did poorly on a test, the world has crashed down. That's my kind of personality. And it is true. Like, if I'm putting my name on something, I want to be proud of it. Otherwise, I'm embarrassed by it. It makes me upset, and that's a personality. But the reason why I say it's a personality flaw is, and this is something that working with Daryl with Defocus Media has really helped me understand, perfectionism can stand in your way of ever actually doing or sharing anything. If you get so caught up in it's got to be perfect, it's got to be just so, you'll never publish or share anything. You'll never put any content out there because it cannot live up to our own standards. And Daryl has, from the beginning, pushed me to be like, share it, do it. We're going to get it out there. And I needed that voice that had the confidence to say, this is good, because I didn't believe it myself. And even now, I've come up a long way. It used to be I was so uncomfortable on video. I never wanted to put video on an Instagram post. I didn't want to put my name on my blog back in the day, and Daryl to convince me to start video podcasting. That was crazy, because I didn't feel perfectionist enough even with how I looked on camera. And, with time, you start realizing, am I going to do it or not? Because if I wait until I look amazing, it's not going to get done today. So
I like that. Yeah, now that you made me think about it, the time you guys interviewed me years ago, the podcast was not on video, and it was literally yeah. So the guys that are coming on now, they are at a benefit because they can see you, But you keep on making reference to Daryl and Dr. Glover. I'm going to take this conversation to a completely different note. Race in South Africa, UK, Australia, America, Europe is a big component where we are not united. We are actually divided in the eye care industry because, let's face it, I don't see a lot of black, white, Hispanic, Asian people coming together and working on projects that are 3 years down the line, 4 years down the line, 5 years down the line, are still surviving and still working together. You and Dr. Daryl Glover are not people that came together due to COVID-19 the last 2 years. You guys have been working together as two young people coming from two different backgrounds, two different genders, and two different races. Can you please unpack for us, how did that partnership, collaboration, friendship start? And when did you guys realize that, wait a minute, we may be different, but this is where we are similar, and this is how we can be able to work together? Because you have set the bar. When everyone wants to work together globally from a premises of black and white, the standard at which everyone should be looking at is Defocus Media, because of the level at which you guys are operating at. Being two completely different individuals, you have broken all barriers that one can ever think of in terms of race, and you're making it work, you're making it a success. Do you mind just unpacking that journey for us? because a lot of the times people don't realize that if we can look at each other beyond our skin color, our economic status, our religious beliefs, our gender preferences, if we can look beyond that, we can do so much wonderful and amazing things throughout the world. And you guys are the epitome of that amazingness. So do you mind just unpacking that for us, please?
Yeah, I mean, so Daryl Glover and we're both from North Carolina. We actually had gone to the same undergrad before we went to optometry school, but NC State is a very large school. We actually did not know each other on campus. He went to PCO, I went to SCO. So our paths collided when we were on externship rotations at the Salisbury VA hospital. And, you know, he is a person that is hard not to be friends with, right? He is the brightest smile in the room. He's full of personality, and you instantly connect with Daryl. Like I've not met a person who didn't feel that way about him. And he actually was pivotal to getting my first job. You know, came out of school without any plan of oh, this person's going to hire me. I thought if I had good grades and I had really high test scores, my resume, I would get any job I put in. But I kind of exited optometry at a time when there weren't a ton of jobs, and, you know, not having a personal connection to someone, I didn't have a foot in the door anywhere. It was stressful. And Daryl did have a connection from a doctor he had teched with in the past, and he was like, I think he might be interested in hiring me too if you apply. And that changed my life. I mean, it's him that I got the first job with. And from, you know, we were working in the same practice, we were in the same circles, but Daryl's an idea person. And I think this is what's really important about our partnership is his personality and my personality could not be more different. And I think that's the secret sauce on why it has worked so well. He is a confident person. He's full of ideas. He has that spark, right? I'm a beta, and I know that about myself, and I embrace that. Like, I can't force myself to be something I'm not. I'm so good at supporting other people's ideas, at wrapping up the back of the house, at writing the content that needs to be written in order to build the SEO, like all the quiet behind the scenes stuff. That's the support role. I'm great at that, you know, and I love having someone else be the center in front of attention. And so it's that, I think, dynamic is really what's made us work, is because we don't have two people competing against each other. We have two people embracing what they excel at. And the racial component of it has not ever been anything that we even thought about. You know, I'm not going to pretend like there's not a whole lot that I need to learn and be more aware of, but it has not entered anything about our conversation. My husband is from Taiwan, and from being married to him, coming from a different cultural background, I realize how much, like, growing up in a very specific racial environment where everybody really looks and talks and sounds to me like there's so much about the world that I don't know. And I'm open-minded to try to learn more and be open to differences.
Wow, that is so powerful. And I think the way you described it is having a sense of an awareness of who you are, what makes you come alive, and what's your own element where you can be able to thrive within your role without taking anything away from the next person. And I think that's such a powerful lesson for many of us, but also to take it further, that awareness that I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. I'm not that smart. I'm smart to a certain level, but I'm constantly having to learn and evolve. And life influences, or life situations or scenarios influence or impact our current situations in multiple ways. So I really absolutely love that. But now, you might not have had an idea or an awareness of what you wanted to do earlier on in your career. Once you found yourself in the midst of it all, then there is Defocus Media, your career is kicking off. You've got your own page on Instagram that you have titled Idolatry, if I have said it correctly. And you are having all these acknowledgements and accolades in terms of being seen as an influencer, a key opinion leader within the eye care industry. When all these things keep happening, what's your current state of mind, Dr. Lyerly? as these things are happening. And they're happening when you are now busy starting a young family as well. You become a mom, and the businesses or the role is evolving, where people now, the industry is expecting more of you, because to whom much is given, much is expected. So how did that process unfold for you when all this is happening, but new things are taking place in terms of being a mom, being a wife? And do you mind unpacking that for us?
Yeah, I mean, so this has been, so my daughter was born 3 years ago, and it's been a lot different. More than ever, I found that my best way to help the community is to support other people who have the bandwidth to do it better than I can, right? Wow. Who have that drive and that ability to do heavy research and get the published. So like it used to be when I first started, I was always researching and talking about negotiations, wage gap, compensation, men versus women. And I am not digging into the research and data like I used to now. A lot of my time is spent with my daughter, and I love to support people who are doing that way better than me, Rachel Simpson and Kate Ham. And I'm like, let me give you guys, like, how can I support your message? How can I promote stuff for you? Because you guys are doing amazing things. So I think sometimes there are times in your career where you're going to be personally creating a lot and doing a lot. And then there's other times where you might get more benefit from it by using whatever platform you have the tool of promoting other voices and spreading really great content that way. So I'm in a major step back time for my personal career growth, I would say right now, but I'm doing some things that I'm finding incredibly rewarding. Everybody's personality in parenting is totally different. But I am, like, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. That was the model and example that was set for me. For me, having a 3-day work week and being with my daughter more that's what is great for me. That's what I've wanted to have. That's what I've aspired to. So taking some steps back from patient care this has been a great time in my life for that. Other people, that's not how they're gonna be happy or excel. So there's no one size fits all approach to like how to be a mom and an optometrist. And then the other thing is, like, I want to just put it out there. Like, it is hard to see opportunities to know, like, okay, you mentioned conferences earlier in the show. I haven't been to a conference since I had her. To travel right now, even without COVID, to be away from my family and my daughter for a period of 3 or 4 days is actually a real hardship for our family right now. And so there will come a time where that's a big part of my life again, but I'm taking a major step back from that side of things. And I have to say no a lot because that's what's best for my family, and they're my highest priority right now.
Wow, I love that, because it goes back to that thing of knowing what works for you, not what works for other people. Making sure that you are okay, making sure that you are operating and functioning within your own element and carving out a path that best works for you. However, you must also then take into consideration, Dr. Lyerly, that you reached a level of effective leadership on a big scale or a big stage that most people can only aspire to. So in you taking a step back, do you realize to a certain extent that you are now playing a role indirectly of being an inspiration to another type of optometrist or young person who also then realizes from earlier on, because it took you 10 years to be in the industry to decide that, wait a minute, whoa, this is not for me. This is what I actually want. To then inspire that 27-year-old who's going to be like, actually, that's what I want. From after listening to you speak right now, they're going to be like, I actually want a better life, quality life, if I can put it that way. How do you feel that, or how do you think your leadership is evolving when you now are changing? Are you still in that evolving process, or do you find yourself identifying that new norm in your life when it comes to the way you lead? especially
Yeah.
on people that will then gravitate to the type of new normal that you are aspiring to right now, if I can put it that way.
I mean, I do feel this need to share with others, because I know where I was at that 3 years out of school, and I see young optometrists coming out who are feeling those same kind of feelings. And I do really want to share the story about, like, this is what optometry can look like. These are passions that you might not have considered that maybe you're interested. So I talk a lot about specialty contact lenses on my social media accounts, for example. I still put a burden on myself to, like, let me do, whether it's like a short 1-minute video, like, let me read an article this week and talk about the findings of it. And it's not polished, and it's, you know, I might have frizzy hair in it, but I still put a lot of pride in, like, let me bring value to someone else who maybe didn't have, like, I have a 3-day work week. I can read an article, like, I can make time for that and summarize it for you. So I do think as long as your focus is, what can I do that maybe brings value to other people? I'm not so much into, like, building a brand. Like, I know there's nothing wrong with that. I think that other people have those aspirations, but that's just not me. I'm always just like, can I do something that's going to be helpful, that maybe you're scrolling through and you learn something and you can take it back to patient care the next day? And that makes me proud, because I learned something too when I made that video. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm really focused on creating right now.
Wow, I love that. With everything that you've done and being a leader, and I don't want to say a female leader, but you are a leader who ends up being a female, right? You give a lot of yourself, of your talents, your skills, your knowledge. Has there ever been a time where someone disappointed you, or a company disappointed you in a big way? And if so, how did you handle that? Because there's no way you would have achieved so much or have produced so much without disappointments along the way, if I can put it that way. How have you dealt with disappointments that involved other people dropping the ball? Or if I hope I'm clear on that.
No, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, you know, this, you can obviously, like, each situation faces its own hurdles, and, like, I think, like anybody, there is a certain sense of, you know, I'm going to have a competitive spirit. Like, if you're a perfectionist, you are competitive with others.
Absolutely.
And in workplace situations, when, you know, you get bypassed because someone else is always like, why not me? Like, what was wrong with me? I was here longer. I was hired first. I'm great. You know, like, those kind of disappointments do come up. And I don't, so I'm sorry, you might want to cut this part, because I don't feel comfortable, like, naming any names of it.
No, I'm not, you know I'm not going to cut it out, because you actually had to take a moment to think about it. You actually had to just think about it, because this is a masterclass, right, by the way. So I'm not cutting anything out. The way you answering it from what's honest to you. And that's what we need at the end of the day. So for me, I'm not cutting anything out.
Okay. I just don't feel, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. You know what I mean? Like,
no, what I mean is that how have you dealt with disappointments? Because for me, I'll give you an example. There've been numerous of times where I initiate something, people commit, and when it comes to delivering, it ends up not working out. And the industry is so small that sometimes you put your name out there in support of other people or other projects, and they don't work out the way you have anticipated them to work out. Sometimes you get put aside in preference for other people, and you can't even understand, but you already did this. And disappointments are there all the time. But you keep working with other people. That's what I think, that's where I'm coming from, that despite all the challenges that we as leaders in the eye care industry tend to face, you still work with that notion of, I want to support people. Despite being disappointed at times, you still have a passion for supporting other people, making sure that if you can't execute something, those that are in the position or have the bandwidth to do so, they can be able to do so, and you will support them in the best way you possibly can. So I think that's where I was coming from with the question. Not so much throwing anyone under the bus or anything like that.
I hear you.
But it's more of young people aspire to build brands. Young people aspire to be key opinion leaders, to be able to make an impact and a difference in the eye care industry. And sometimes they don't have an awareness that we make it look easy. That's the problem. We make it look easy. You know, you see Defocus Media where it's at right now. You don't see Defocus Media when they were having to try and build those stakeholder relationships, when they were getting no for an answer, when you were submitting those abstracts to perhaps speak at a conference and you were getting rejection letters. You know, they don't get to see that part because we don't necessarily always share that part. We always share the end result of some things. So I think that's where I was coming from more than anything else.
Oh yeah, I mean, like we get rejections all the time, and I think that's you got to accept that as a normal part of the process. You know, you might submit a paper and it doesn't get published, or it comes back to you and it is edited so far it doesn't even look like you wrote it anymore. Like I've had papers that I submitted that have come back like that Frankensteinish, and you kind of have to know that boundary, right, of where what feels comfortable still for me to put my name on and what is just so far removed from me that is this a good time not for me to be a part of this. And especially you know, when you do get these relationships to work with industry, you know, there's pros and cons, because sometimes there's things that need to be done where it's very scripted and it starts to not sound like you anymore. And to have, you know, that ability to say, this opportunity is a good fit for me and this opportunity is not a good fit for me. I think you have to be confident in yourself to know where is that kind of line for you if you want to enjoy the opportunity to work with partners. And I've had amazing experiences working with industry partners. Like our industry leaders really do embrace and love having young voices now, female voices, diverse voices. That was not always the case. 10 years ago, the last thing anybody wanted to see was a new grad female optometrist telling someone else what to do. So, but there's more opportunity than ever before. And I think if you research and you put out good content that people can learn from, there's always a place for you. And it doesn't matter what you look like or what you sound like at this point. Like the world is much more open to diverse opinions.
Wow, I love that. I love that. I love the aspect of boundaries, because then it puts you in a position to be clear on an opportunity might be great, but it might not necessarily be great for me. Yes, financially, it might look amazing and accelerate certain aspects, but it's not always about the money. It's about your integrity. It's about, would you be okay with this? You know, so I absolutely love that. Building trust. Is it easy to build trust now with all these online platforms or opportunities than it was 10 years ago when you guys were getting out there more often and utilizing social media platforms? How easy or difficult is it to be able to build trust or establish a trustworthy brand in eye care right now?
I definitely think social media has made it so much easier, because every time you post, you are showing an action. You're showing people who you are and what you care about, you know, and so that trust does get built way more naturally and way more quickly. I think that's why a lot of times when you meet someone that you've only had interactions with through social media, you immediately feel like fast friends, like you've known each other forever, because you've seen their actions, and their actions really do speak louder than words in that sense. So, and I think same thing, companies like an industry partner can see your body of work on social media if that's something you're aspired to, and already has that trusting relationship with you, because they know what you do and what you produce. Like there is a brand, for lack of a better word, that gets generated by your actions online. Contrarily to that, though, I find it's harder than ever to build trust with your patients in the exam room. So while some aspects of society, social media has improved, in other aspects, I think it's really hurt the doctor-patient relationship, because they are used to building trust through their online platforms. And as the doctor, you're kind of a stranger to them when they walk to the exam room, and they don't immediately have that trust in you just because you're their doctor.
How do you overcome that? You specifically, with you having minimized, for a good reason, the days that you have for patient care. How have you then ensured, or what do you do specifically that helps you be able to build trust in the examination room? What are some of the practical things that you do whenever you are in practice?
Yeah, I do think it is important for the office to have a social media. You're not going to have a ton of followers, but having the doctor, having the staff visible on your website, visible on your social media, that's one way to build trust in that same way that we're doing with our kind of doctor to doctor communications online, right? But not all your patients are going to go and follow you online. Okay, let's be honest. And so I think a big thing is to make sure that you're a listener. People tend to trust doctors that they feel like are connecting with them on that emotional level. Wow. You're not going to be able to explain and educate your way to a patient trusting you. Wow. But you can listen your way and empathize your way into a patient trusting you. That takes time. Wow. And so for me, that means having longer exam times is my better efficiency, if you will, at good patient outcomes. And I try, when I go into the room, I may know in the back of my head, I mean, y'all, most of us know after reading the chart or your tech giving you like a quick spiel, exactly what's wrong, exactly what you're going to tell the patient to fix it. You know that their burning stinging is because they have dry eyes and you're going to give them this drops. Don't go in there and start talking. Go in there and be quiet and listen, and then do the exam. And at the end of the exam, then that's your time to talk. But you got to build the trust first.
Wow, I love that. That is so powerful, the listening component of it. And, you know, our patients, because I think social media is great, but nothing beats a satisfied patient who leaves the doctor's office knowing that their problem is solved and they got the best patient care experience ever, because that person becomes the biggest practice advocate. That person will talk about you more than your post will talk about you. So I think what you're hitting such a valid point in that regard. What excites you the most about eye care in 2022? Or what frustrates you the most about eye care in 2022?
Oh, so right now I am super excited about myopia management. Okay. I don't know, I am like just all in. I love doing my site. I'm doing Ortho-K. I just love talking to patients about it because it's something new that they haven't necessarily heard during exams, and kind of educating them on the path of myopia. Because I do think it's very important for our patients to at least be aware of what options are out there, whether they choose to do a myopia management treatment plan or not. So that gives me a lot of energy, and I love doing scleral contact lenses. There's something just so rewarding about, it's like making the perfect puzzle fit. Like you change each little element by so many microns, and then the patient comes back and they're like, it's so comfortable, I can't even feel them in my eye. And you're like, yes. So that, I love it. I absolutely love that. But what's challenging is, like, unfortunately, these kind of specialties that are so rewarding to my patients, oh my gosh, they are not covered well by insurances. Even for my patients that have corneal degenerative issues, and really they need scleral contact lenses to be able to see clearly. Oftentimes medical insurances, unless they have a vision plan with this kind of coverage, if they're on like a Medicare or a medical plan coverage, it's going to be kicked out as experimental, or that's a contact lens, we don't cover that. And it's very frustrating to my patients because they're like, I'm functionally blind without these, and how are you telling me that that's not a medical care? And I'm like, I agree with you, but I hit a wall where the insurance isn't going to agree with us, so we have no choice other than for you to pay thousands of dollars. And the truth is, like, the lenses are expensive, and it is a lot of time in the office. Yeah, I'm seeing people 3 or 4 times for 30 minutes at a time to keep the lights turned on. There's a certain amount of money that has to be generated at each exam like, or I'm not going to be able to like pay my employees or continue to pay rent. So, you know, it's one of those that's a hard balance, because no matter what you do, if you're in practice, money has at a certain point, it has to come into it, because if you're losing money, you have to close your doors. You can't practice anymore.
Wow, that is so interesting, because by the way, South Africa is facing a similar challenge. You know, we are a third world country, obviously developing, but we find that a lot of, especially the last 3 years, since 2017, the Contact Lens Society of South Africa was rebirthed again. And we had our first conference in 2017, another one in 2019. And then this year, they brought in Dr. Tom Arnold and Dadi Fadal to do our workshops on Euroschool. And the past 2019 and 2017, we had a full-on contact lens conference with international speakers coming in. And as a result, more interest was sparked for practitioners here in South Africa and the southern part of the continent to want to go into scleral lenses. So prior to that, we were doing hard contact lenses for your keratoconus patients and all of that. But the last 4 or 5 years, there's been an increase in the amount of practitioners that have gone the scleral lens route. And we also have a similar challenge in terms of insurance, that medical aids don't necessarily cover that. And it's a big challenge. But hey, the excitement, I remember 3 years ago or 4 years ago when I put my first scleral lens on a patient, and the joy, the excitement of having that patient react the way they did in terms of being able to see. And back then, we never had the tool by Dr. Faiz Magub, the scleral lens
insert.
You know, if we could have tools like that in South Africa, it will be so amazing. But one thing I wanted to say to you is, you have managed to prioritize clinical competence in you becoming an optometrist, whilst at the same time building a brand. But your intention was never to build a global eye care brand. You know, so it's so weird how you've got this global eye care brand that you've established. And why I'm mentioning this is that a lot of the times on social media, you see a lot of fluff. You see all these doctors do so many things on social media, but you sit back and you start poking holes at it, and you're like, what does this doctor offer their patients beyond being this big brand on social media? What is it that they do in their actual practice? What I love about your work is that you have not sort of like put aside the clinical importance of what we do. You have managed to build a brand by showcasing that we are not just refractionists. We are actually clinicians providing one of the most important services in our community. So I give you all the props for that, because you constantly demonstrate to those that are coming after you to say, hey, yes, be on Instagram, be on LinkedIn, be on TikTok, be on all these amazing platforms, but don't forget that you are an optometrist and your job is to provide primary eye care to the community that you are serving. So thank you for that. Is it something that you were intentional about, or did you just find yourself being in the midst of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just what I'm drawn to, right? Like I don't have the self-confidence maybe to like do a cute lip syncing video. Like it's just not going to be ever something that I can proudly put forward. And more props to you if you can. I'm not saying that that's wrong or bad. Like everybody has their own thing that they feel rewarded and shine by. But like this felt comfortable to me, so that's the kind of content that I make. I do think it's fun to see like there's no one size fits all. I mean, there's probably like a certain type of profile where you're going to get more followers. But as long as that's what you're after, there's plenty of space for you if you don't want to, if that's not like your personality and not a way for you to showcase yourself.
I like that. I like that. For me, you've highlighted so many pearls of wisdom in this masterclass series. I'm so excited for people who are going to be watching this, because you spoke about value. You're speaking about knowing your strengths and how do you harness your own strengths in the type of working environment, type of optometry career that you want to have. So I really, really like, this was so good because you showed people the journey. Sometimes we see brands like a Dr. Darrell Glover, or you for that matter, and you only have a particular picture of it, but not realizing that what we may think of you is completely different to what you are actually portraying and giving of yourself, because we might be thinking you want to build a global brand and you do all these things, and yet today you've revealed that you've got zero interest in building a global brand. The interest that you have is adding value. How that grows on its own, it's a different story, but your main focus is adding value. And I think that's the encouragement that people should take from this, that, hey, are you adding value? Are you giving it your very best? Whatever interest that you have, is it something that you're giving your very best to? And know what you're worth and know what works for you. So those are some of the things that I've picked up a lot from this conversation. And yeah, it's been such an exciting time.
I mean, Dr. Glover, Darrell, I'm sure his aspiration is to build a global brand, and like I'm happy to support him on his mission and journey. So that's my beta coming back in. But and the other thing is, though, like, I want to mention, sometimes it does, when you're a person that's more of a backseat person. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't always like hurt my feelings a little bit. I'll have people come up to me and like, oh, do you listen to Darrell's podcast? I mean, yes, I'm also on it. Yeah. But that's okay. Like, at the end of the day, what people take away is it's Darrell's podcast, and Darrell is the best front man for a podcast, and the reason we're successful is Darrell. Okay, so I support that, but it does, like, I have pride just like everyone else.
One thing that I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but whenever you speak to Darrell, half the conversation he's talking about you. And
yeah, he is a very generous partner.
When I'm speaking to you now, half this conversation is about you talking about him. So I realized that you know each other's roles, but you both owe credit to each other. And I think that's something that's so magical, because you both owing credit to one another and what the other one is doing. And I think that's very remarkable, because a lot of people don't actually have context of what you guys have built. Do you realize that you guys have brought so many people on? I think you guys have brought people on. I think we need to do a separate masterclass series with the two of you on Defocus Media, because I think if you guys had to take stock of how many people you guys have brought on, I think you guys will start to cry if I start thinking about it that way, because I would not even have any form of relationship with anyone in America had it not been for you guys. My very first international podcast, I never knew anything about podcasts. How about that? I knew nothing about podcasts. When I look at the amount of people that you guys have created opportunities for, have brought onto your platform, that get to speak with you two, and we listen to them in South Africa or Brazil or wherever the case may be, and those brands grow and evolve to become incredible brands. But the very first platform where they were featured was on Defocus Media. So the work that you guys have done is really, really, it's a legacy in IK. If they have to talk about the top 10 legacy projects that have taken place that have redefined IK on a global stage, Defocus Media is in the top 10 of things that have redefined eye care professionals or eye care as a whole. So kudos to you both for the way you have led, the way you lead, and the humility at which you do it with. It's really, I can't wait to meet you, and meet you both, because I'm tired of this. You see what we're doing now? I'm actually tired of it. I'm over it. I'm over it. So you and I, we're no longer going to talk until we can talk in person. How about that?
I definitely think, you know what, like, if there's one thing that the pandemic has really shown us, is the importance of in person, right? And like everything we do on here, like, it can only go so far. But when you get people in a room making things happen. That's the real secret to true momentum. So I agree with you, and I can't wait. Like, I can't wait to get back on the road and go to conferences again. I don't know. I joke that like my kid will have to be 18, but I think maybe if she can hit 5.
Just before we go, speaking of your kid, how has motherhood reshaped or shaped you as a person? When you look at how you were before motherhood and post motherhood, because right from the beginning of this masterclass series, that was a key component of what is a priority for you right now. How has that shaped you? Yeah, if I can put it that way.
I think I've come to know myself and accept who I am at a much higher rate. Like, prior to motherhood, I kind of knew like there were things that made me uncomfortable, like being in the spotlight or putting my face front and center. But there was always that part of you where you're like, well, maybe I'll build more confidence. Maybe I am like an alpha or like a center of attention type person. I could grow into it. And I think being a mom, you just kind of learn who you are as a caregiver, as a nurturer. And I just realized like, this is who I am. Like, this is the kind of person I like to be. I like to support other people on their growth and journeys. And it's okay if I'm not a center of attention kind of person. Like, not everybody has to be. Some people can be this type of personality and be very happy. And I've just kind of learned, like, because of that, what opportunities are right for me and what opportunities are just going to stress me out and make my family unhappier because I'm unhappier. And so, you know, I like we talked about, I say no to a lot of things because I know I only have time in my life to dedicate to something that I'm passionate about right now. And I can't be passionate about everything. I can't be good at everything. But I wanted to mention this one thing before we close, like, that comes with its own cons. Like, I recently had someone tell me they were at a nominations committee and another young female optometrist was nominated to position. And during her interview, one of the things that came up with the nominators behind the scenes as like a token of praise was that she never talks about being a mother. She never says no because she has young kids at home. And that was like one of the reasons why they said she deserves this, because she puts optometry first and she never says, no, I've got my family. And I was like, is that praise? Is like, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Like but that truth is like, that's something that people do find praiseworthy. And that's, you know, the world that's still what we live in. So every time you say no, there are going to be people in a crowd or in a group that are like, she's not available. She doesn't put us first, and we're not going to probably extend any work to her. And that's fine. Like, we have to be aware of that. But there's still a long way to go with like what it means to be a mom and be a doctor and be a leader, because what we recognize as good leadership usually means putting that first and everything else has to go away like it's not even there.
Wow. Let me tell you something on that note. 2019, I did a breakfast with two leaders, one from South Africa, one from the UK. And we sat together, and they are in their 60s now, at the latter part of their careers, and they've done incredible work in eye care. And I sat in this breakfast meeting with them, and I asked them one question. I said, you guys have changed eye care in a big way on a global stage. What's the one thing that you wish you would have done differently? And both of them ended up spending almost an hour talking about they wish they had a 3-day work week. Because in that year, these are two men who have built incredible businesses. Yeah. And in 2019, they were in the year where for the first time in their lives, they had cut down on the amount of hours that they spend in practice to 3 days a week. And the other days, if it's not optometry related work that they've always been doing, it was more family time. Mm-hmm. And when they look back after a 40-year career, the one thing that both of them said was, I wish I started a 3-day work week right from the beginning. after 5 or 6 years of working and build my life around that 3-day work week with patient care and still do all the things that I've done. But if I could have made more time for family. And now when you're talking, listening to you right now, I realize that that's actually one thing that sort of like my wife always challenges me on right now. And I realize that, you know what, if those two guys, I'm thinking about this right now, if those guys could reach the end of their career and speak like that, that means we're all going to get to that level. So why not get to that level now when we're still young and still have 30 more years to go? Why don't you carve out that path when you're still young and full of life, and only not wait until you are at the end of your career to be like, I only want to work 3 days a week. So kudos to you.
I mean, I'm not saying it's easy for everyone. Like,
it's not easy. It's not easy.
You know, you're gonna lose money. You're not gonna have health care. Like, I mean, it is a challenge. But if you can make that work for your life, I found it to be incredibly rewarding for me. But I realized, like, not everyone has the flexibility to have that situation. And this is coming from a place of luxury for me to say that I can go to 3 days a week.
Wow.
I mean, I feel, but here's the thing, like, okay, work-life balance. This is the last one. I recently listened to, actually, Daryl had a podcast with Dr. Loretta Johnston.
Yes, I was watching that podcast. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I have always kind of wondered, like, work-life balance, like, oh, does that mean I worked 4 days? Does that mean I had 3 days? And like, before I was doing 4 days for a while, I was really struggling. I went to 3 days, and that has really been working really well for me. But what I found out from listening to our podcast, the reason why that number worked for me and why a different number could potentially work for someone else is that work-life balance, all that means is the freedom for you to choose what you want to do with your time. If you do not have enough time in your day to ever have a moment to say, what would I like to do now? You're going to feel stressed, harried, unhappy, like your skin's going to pop off of you. Okay. And so you got to find the time, however many work days that is, or home days that is, or what it is, like whatever that balance means for you, where you have, even if it's just an hour, for you to say, what will I do now? And pick the thing that would make you happy to do in that moment.
Wow. I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that. Absolutely love that. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so at Defocus Media, you guys, I am Defocus Media's co-founder and secretary. So if you're emailing us, you're probably getting to me. I also have my own social media accounts at Idolatry. It's EYE.DOLATRY. I don't know why I named it that in 2011, but it's too late now. So that's what I am.
Yeah, that's like, I don't even want to know why you named it that, but I love it because it's unique. It's one of the most unique names in terms of branding. And wow, what a masterclass series. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you so much for just sharing with us your journey, enlightening us with your perspective and your approach to things. Because I think one of the other things that I'm picking up from this is that we all different, eh? We all different, and you just need to figure out what is you, or what works for you. Who are you, and then function within that. I've learned so much from you. All the best for the remainder of the year. I know you said you're taking a break from certain things, but I think we can at least agree that your light shines so much that even when you have taken a break, your light still shines like too bright. So please continue being the difference maker that you are. You literally are a difference maker. You are an MVP, you know, you're an MVP. You are really, really an incredible human being. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for all that you do.
Right back at you. Yeah. You'll have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for spending time with us.
Everyone, thank you very much for subscribing to the Vision Straight YouTube channel. We've got so many other episodes that we have shared in the masterclass series from incredible leaders from all over the world. if you want to catch up on the different episodes, make sure to go to the YouTube channel now and subscribe. Thank you very much for connecting with us across the different social media platforms. And of course, make sure that you also connect with Defocus Media. Because if you're not connected with Defocus Media, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what you do in the eye care industry, please connect with me so that I can educate you about Defocus Media as a whole. But also make sure that you connect with the lovely Dr. Jennifer Lyerly. What an incredible human being. Until the next episode, guys, take good care.